Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Fixing Diablo 2. And as I stress every single episode, I don't feel that Diablo 2 is broken, but I do feel that certain skills are left out in the cold like puppy dogs in the snow. And one of those skills that's kind of been left out in the cold like a puppy dog in the snow is Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm used to be a long time ago, like absolutely ridiculous. I remember. Uh, I remember them days when freaking Thunderstorm used to be just like one of the most broken abilities in the game, and sorceresses used to just like sit there on the edge of a zone with everybody made hostile with like maximum Thunderstorm, and they used to just stand right here outside of the Dewjank, and they used to just dish out like massive amounts of damage to anybody who dared approach the edge of the boundary. Thunderstorm has fallen a long way from what it used to be. It's no longer the skill that it used to be. It doesn't put out that kind of damage, not anymore. It used to put out that kind of damage, but doesn't anymore. Nowadays, that's all it does, though, is it puts out damage. One of the things that I do feel like we need to talk about is that, well, all the other abilities that are castable like this, say Frozen Armor gives you defense and some sort of utility like freezes targets, you get Shiver Armor, causes cold damage and chilling damage. Chilling Armor attacks ranged monsters and does the same thing, does a little bit of chilling damage, you know what I mean? And, every single ability that casts like this, Energy Shield gives you some sort of utility by reducing damage incoming. Has some sort of additional effect. Cyclone Armor gives you, reduced elemental damage. Holy Shield gives you increased defense and block chance and so forth and so on. These are castable abilities that literally do something for your character, right? Something other than damage, not just damage. It's not only a damage skill. The only skill that even remotely comes close to this is Venom, because Venom is poison, and poison is technically damage only, but poison also has the added benefit of arresting regeneration while it's active, so there's also that. Which basically leaves us with Thunderstorm, which has absolutely no utility, but does damage. And then the one thing that it does do, which is damage, it's kind of subpar at. Even maxed out with 20, 40, 60 points to max it out. Which, if you're going to be a lightning sorceress, you're probably going to put 20 points into lightning mastery anyway. So we could potentially remove those from the equation, because if you are a lightning sorceress, you don't necessarily have to put 60, because you're going to put those in anyway. So 40 at the very least to hit the maximum for Thunderstorm. Now, the synergy for Thunderstorm is static field, which is kind of nice. Not going to lie. I actually kind of like static field as a synergy, and basically makes it so that you have a really nice big huge static field, which means you can hit pretty much everything on the screen, right? 4,828 damage isn't really like the most amazing, though. You can get better from things like lightning, just as an example. Let's go ahead and put some points into lightning real quick. And we're going to max out lightning. So lightning is charge bolt, Nova, and chain lightning. So we need all of these. And as you can see, we're doing what? 15,943 damage from lightning. And of course, this is a suboptimal level 30 character. Not anywhere near close to capped out. Nowhere near close to capped out. I don't know what Cody's doing over there. I'm looking at it. In comparison to something like lightning, it doesn't put out anywhere near as much damage as, like Thunderstorm doesn't put out anywhere as much damage as lightning does. But the thing is that, well, if damage is the only thing that Thunderstorm is going to be good for, and it doesn't actually do enough damage to really be all that amazing, then it needs to do something else. And this is just my opinion on this. I think if Thunderstorm had some other utility, it would make it better. I'm not exactly sure what that utility would be, and I'm kind of hesitant to, just slap on some ideas, but let's just slap on some ideas anyway. So what could Thunderstorm potentially do which could be interesting? Well, a stun, a micro stun could be interesting. Perhaps something like a 0.4 second stun. could be interesting, giving you a chance to escape. I mean, when we take a look at Frozen Armor has a freeze length duration of 2.4 seconds. Capped out, it's 4.6 seconds. Now, granted, this does go down tremendously depending on the level of the monster or what they have half freeze duration, what difficulty you're in. There's a lot of scenarios. Resistance, Cold Mastery also increases the duration of this, so you can potentially increase this even further by having Cold Mastery. And so in general, like a 0.4 second stun doesn't exactly sound terrible when you consider that you can freeze a monster for much longer. A micro stun doesn't sound like an awful option. I was also considering, and this could be an interesting option, is that it will lower the resistance of the monster struck for a short duration. So maybe, like it could give like negative 10% enemy lightning resistance for like 5 seconds after it strikes the monster or something. So that if you have it up on a regular basis, you get a small damage bump to all of your other spells for having it active. It could be specifically for lightning, or maybe it could be for 10% to all elements. Maybe it could be enemy lightning, enemy fire resistance, enemy cold resistance, and enemy. Well, that's pretty much it, because they're lightning, fire, and cold, right? So we wouldn't want it to have anything else. But maybe it could do all three. Maybe give a small 10% damage, increase, 10% elemental resistance, a decrease to the monster, which would effectively mean 10% increase in your damage. But at the same time, could also put it into a more usable state and actually maybe encourage people to utilize it. Another suggestion could be something similar to. I think here. I had it in my head and now I lost it. But, we have like Frozen Armor, Shiver Armor, and Chilling Armor. Perhaps it could do something like a % chance of triggering one of your spells. Like, for instance, maybe it could have a small % chance to. Like a 10% chance to cast, say, lightning or chain lightning from your actual abilities. Like maybe it just activates one of these abilities. I would say chain lightning would be more interesting, in my opinion. Chain lightning as opposed to lightning, because it would actually go out and hit multiple targets. So you'd have like a small % chance to actually trigger one of your higher damage abilities, which could be interesting. I mean, obviously you could just cast it yourself, but and that could be another potential option. I mean, the general idea here is to, because they're probably never going to bring up the damage of the ability. That would be my assumption here, is that they're never going to bring up the damage of Thunderstorm to actually be on par with something like Lightning or Chain Lightning, especially since it's an automatic cast ability. It also requires a pretty hefty amount of points to reach. So, it requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points to get to Thunderstorm. And granted, if you're going for Energy Shield anyway, you already spent these 3. So you only require 3 more, basically. But it's still a pretty heavy amount of points to get to it. One thing that I would maybe do here is remove this line right here, so that you are not required to get Chain Lightning, and Charge Bolt to grab Thunderstorm. Still require Static Field and Nova to get it. And there's a reason why, is because pretty much nobody that's actually building, if you're not building the lightning tree, you're not going to put points in this ability. Like, everybody puts a point in Frozen Armor as a sorceress. Everybody puts a point in Cold Mastery as a sorceress to beef up Frozen Armor. Just 1 point is huge to beef up the freeze duration of Frozen Armor and make it more effective, right? Everybody puts 1 point into Warmth. Well, nobody puts 1 point into Thunderstorm unless they're actually in this tree. And it really comes down to the fact that it's just such a large number of skill points to reach. And so what I'd really like to see is, I'd like to see this line disappear so that Thunderstorm doesn't require 6 skill points to get to. Everybody puts a point in static field, so it really would only require 2 additional skill points to get to, and at that point they can make up their mind what they want to actually do with it. Whether they want to like tag a point in lightning mastery, beef up static field, actually utilize it. But the general gist of what we're trying to do here would be to turn Thunderstorm into just a damage ability and turn it into more of a utility ability so that it can actually provide some kind of utility to the character. Whether it's a micro stun that acts, defensively and helps the sorceress in defensive situations, whether it lowers the resistance of the monster for a short duration after striking them, whether it provides like a small % chance to cast whatever your main hand spell is. I mean, that could be interesting too. Instead of casting Chain Lightning, perhaps we change it so that it's like a 10% chance to cast the spell in your left click slot. So whatever the spell in your left click slot is, it would have a chance to cast whatever that spell is. So if you have lightning in your left click slot, or charged bolt, or if you're using chain lightning, or if you're using blizzard or glacial spike or whatever it is, like when it goes off and it actually hits a target, there'd be like a 10% chance for it to actually hit, and dish out more than normal. As it is right now, it basically just, comes down, hits a target. It's not even working right now. I think it's because I pulled the points out of it. Here, let's go ahead and do this. All these points I gotta put in just to get access to it. And then we'll recast it. And there we go. As you can see, though, even fully synergized with its current 4,800 and some odd damage, I'm in hell difficulty right now, and it still doesn't have the easiest time killing even like monsters in the Bloodmore. Is this set to Player's Aid? Can't even remember. It is set to Player's Aid. So we are on Player's Aid right now, which is something you got to take into account. My general thinking on this is just I really want to see people actually use the ability. Give people an actual reason to cast it in their precast. Maybe even look for items so that they can get it for free. Like, for instance, staves and things like that, or orbs that have those skills so they can use it on precast. Like swap over, cast the ability, swap back. And maybe even having the ability to just like randomly cast a Chain Lightning could be an interesting option as well. I mean, it does go off fairly often. Even at like a 10% chance, it would still be often enough that you'd see the occasional Chain Lightning or whatever your main hand ability is come out. It's an interesting thought provoker here. I'm not sure if exactly I'm on the right track, though. I'd like to hear what you guys have to think about this one. What do you think it could potentially make Thunderstorm a viable skill again? As a skill, unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to be a main damage skill. It's not going to be like the main skill that you can build your character around. Since it is a castable, it's supposed to be something that you can cast on your character that has a continuous effect, right? Well, if it has a continuous effect, then it should have an actual real continuous effect. Another interesting way to put it is that maybe the micro stun, instead of going off when Thunderstorm hits a target, you get like this little micro stun. Maybe instead of that happening, maybe having the ability up means that when a monster hits you, they get a 0.4 micro stun. A little stun, right? So 0.4 second stun. It could be another way to approach that as well. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could potentially approach how this ability works, making it into a defensive, make it into something that is offensive, making it so that it's something fun that kind of casts random abilities from your character. There's a lot of different ways that I could potentially see this one being more interesting than what it currently is. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to return to what it was pre-Diablo 2 LOD, which was one of the most broken, overpowered abilities in the game. I distinctly remember so many times in PvP, like the lightning sorceresses would show up with their T-Storm, and they would just stand outside and just murder everybody as they walked out of the area. Comment down below if you remember that from D2 pre-LOD. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about Thunderstorm. I don't really think there's a whole lot more to talk about with this particular ability. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this one, though. I want to see your ideas, so make sure you put them down below. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.